So really, this is a chance for us to hear from some experts, but also continue the discussions that we've already started around how to kind of cross-pollinate situations that we're having in our buildings. And I can tell you that Ward 7 has some real issues at this point in time. And so this is why I chose to choose this topic. Every month, our ward will have some kind of community conversations event. Last month, we hosted a conversation panel with teachers and parent leaders from Ward 7 public schools dealing with helping mutual aid efforts for families affected by ICE. And it was really a timely topic. Today, I feel, is just as timely. And just because we're not a big crowd doesn't mean that this isn't going to have impact, because we are recording it. So I just want you to know, if you don't feel comfortable having the back of your head in some of these shots, it should be close, but I just want to tell you that. So I know some people care about that. But we hope to use this to distribute this in my newsletter so that other people that cannot be here today can hear from the experts that have shared their time and their expertise with us today. So I'm really thrilled to just kick this off. We have 3 to 4 speakers today, and then there were some index cards. If you have some specific questions that you would like to bring at the end, please write those out, give them to Marty, who is sitting right there in the back, and we can make sure and get those read and answered before we leave today. I'm hoping to really wrap this up a few minutes before 5 so that we can continue to have dialogue about with each other. And then also if you have other specific questions for the folks that are here. We are going to start with city staff, and then we're going to be moving to Stephen Briskin, who is the president of the LPM Tenants Association. We also have the president of the Brentwood Tenant Association here, Emery, and we've already got some great ideas going. And so I really thank you for being here, and please know that our Ward 7 office is a resource. So I would like to call up Michael Cheetah, who is in the fire inspections area, and he can kick us off today. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Cheetah. I'm with the Minneapolis Fire Inspections. We work out of the Hawthorne Ramp area. Just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys and let you know how to issue a complaint, what would happen, what the steps are with that. So basically, if there's an issue with your apartment, if you call your landlord and they are not responsive, then we recommend you call 311, issue a complaint, and then one of us will reach out to you, probably me. Then next step would be, first I would ask, did you contact them? Do you have a written kind of history? So that way, if it does come up again, we can kind of backtrack with that. Second would be, is this still an incident happening? Thirdly, when can I come out and take a look at it? So then basically, we would set up a time, I would come and visit you, and if there is orders issued, I would have to basically witness it happening. I can't go off of, I can't take your pictures and submit those as evidence in my report. I have to physically witness it myself. When I do issue orders, it can't be, I have to give them ample amount of time, like roughly 30 days, that's roughly. And then we follow up with them. And so, yeah, kind of lost my train of thought, sorry. But there is I am not a mold expert. So if you ever call and say, there's mold in my unit, I will never write the word mold on it. It would be a mold-like substance. If you need to get mold testing, there's other departments out there that can handle that, just not us. All I can say is clean that surface. Another one would be, there's water damage in my apartment, so I would come out to your apartment, look at the water damage, and if they fix that, then good job. But if they don't, then I'll definitely write orders where they would have to come back in and refix that area. If there's active stuff, then we could probably work a little quicker. Maybe if there's an active leak, we can definitely work with the landlords on that and get it taken care of a little quicker. So if they are actively fixing the situation when I arrive, then unfortunately there's not a lot I can do at that time. Even if they're just supplying fans to dry out the area or put a temporary block on the pipe that's burst or something like that. I'm just giving scenarios. So yes, there is a lot I can do, but then there's a lot I can't do. So it is definitely a case by case situation. But we are definitely out to help you. So definitely recommend calling if you need anything. Anything else you want to know? So.
Did you have any materials or things that people might
So this
find
is.
helpful?
So the website is good. I actually thought this was for more the one building. I didn't know for the whole ward. So if you are having issues with your building, definitely call and we'll talk about it. But yeah, so I thought this was more real one building issues. So what's that? I'm not allowed to say that.
Yes.
Okay, 110 Grant area. I thought that was that one. Is there a lot of people here from that? Okay. So I would like to talk to you at the end of this. Sure. So, yeah. So I think that's.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And then Daryl, we've got Daryl Taylor is going to come on up and share as well. And Michael, I can get you in contact with more folks from 110 Grant if that is helpful, and I'll connect with you when we finish up. But thank you, Daryl, for being with us and sharing your Saturday afternoon. All right. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daryl Spears. I am a housing liaison in regulatory services. Housing liaisons are a little bit different, as you just heard Mike talk about. We are not inspectors, and what we're here to do is work with residents and property owners, because we also deal with property owners within the city who have housing challenges, and we try to make sure that the resident is always centered in this process, but we talk about what's going on within that space, the four walls and the roof. Challenges in regards to property owners and resident matters, challenges in regards to if I'm a homeowner, I need some repairs done. So some of the things that we do is we are all mediators. And so we not only listen and we hear, but what we do is we try to connect residents and or property owners with the right space and the right place to solve those challenges that they're having. We talk about being able to spend that extra time to peel back the layers, to find out what's going on, to work on making sure where you live is the space you want to be in. We work with other community partners. We talk to folk from Hennepin County. We talk to senior services. Anybody and everybody that has a housing challenge, we're always looking for ways to connect. So as a liaison, our ultimate goal is, wow, it's a lot to do and it's a lot to carry. I saw that there were some tenant rights organizations. That's amazing. And how do you get to us? The first way to get to us is, 311, as Mike talked about. 311 gets everything started. And so if you have a problem with your property owner, let's say the inspections have come out and they've written orders and you're still not getting anything done or it's not happening, we can sit down and say, as residents of that building, do you guys need to organize? So we'll reach out to those organizations that do tenant union organizing and help them create information so they can have a foothold and a voice in terms of dealing with property owners, because it's a challenge out there. So some of our partners are Homeline, Legal Aid, the Community Land Trust, Habitat for Humanity, Hearts and Hammers, and neighborhood organizations, the Tree Trust, Rebuilding Together. These are organizations. And what I have here is the liaison information that's on our website. And I'll leave these with you also because there's also a QR code. So you can go on that, find that information and it will get to us. It will get to us. We have a dedicated housing liaison email that is monitored daily by us, by the staff. And so residents can reach out. Now, you will often hear us say, have you reached out to 311? Because that gives everyone a place to start from. That gives everyone a place to say, I'm here, I want to be seen, and I want to be heard. So as liaisons, we're here for all of that. People say, what do you do? I go, yes, and. And that's a real challenge when I say yes, and, because there's so much to do that involves your four walls and a roof. We get complaints about, all kinds of stuff or concerns about stuff. We deal with renter protection issues, all of the above, anything that involves the four walls and the roof. So if anybody has any questions, please, 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 you can reach out to me or I'll leave the information and we will get you to the right space. Thanks a bunch.
And thank you for mentioning 311. We all know that, but the more people that call in, the more, if they have 5 calls around this particular issue, it can sometimes raise the awareness. Stephen, please come up, introduce yourself, and kind of tell your story.
All right. Well, you're able to hear me. I'm used to talking in a classroom, but never with a microphone. So, maybe that's the issue?
There you go.
Oh, there we go. All right. So, my name is Stephen Briskin. I am the president of the LPM's Tenants Union. Our vice president happens to be here as well, Kyle. Good to see you. I have lived in Loring Park now for 10 years, and all of that time in the LPM building. So I think the history of how we formed, and hopefully I get this right. So a few years ago, our building was bought by an owner-operator. They're called Wiedner Apartment Homes. They are buying up properties all over the Twin Cities. And it became at least apparent to me pretty quickly that they were not there to make improvements, at least to the building. And it all sort of came to a head last summer when 2 elevators of the 3 that we have for a 36-story, 354-unit building, 2 of the 3 suffered catastrophic failures, as I think that was the terminology, leaving us with just 1 elevator for, 6-8 weeks did it take for them to repair it? And sometimes that 3rd elevator wasn't even really available to us. So at the time, it was actually Kyle. He did a heck of a lot of work, printed a bunch of pamphlets out, canvassed the building, convened meetings, and presented a strategy. I think our first meeting had 70 or 80 people. It was I've never seen that many people come together. I mean, we were all very frustrated waiting in line for 15, 20 minutes just to get into our apartments. And so, it came with a strategy to escrow our rent. It seemed reasonable at the time. I guess that was not the way it turns out to handle this. I'm not sure why, given that we were not able to access our apartments. Sometimes we're even longer than 20 minutes, depending on the day and depending on if the 3rd elevator was being used for other things. So, but in the end, they did repair them. And so any monies that were escrowed ended up going to the landlord. But what did come out of this was we maintained this group of people, and we tried to more formalize the organization. We made some bylaws. We elected a tenant board. This board now meets every month. And so that is the story of how we came to be. I hope I got that right as succinctly as I could. So I'm trying to think what should in terms of, I think our overall goal, at least for me, a goal of mine would be to establish a constructive dialogue with the landlord so that when a problem does occur, we can sit down, talk about it, and ideally come up with some resolution. Unfortunately, they seem more interested in stonewalling any sort of conversation. But there are some things that have, I think, been beneficial. Like we have managed to maintain a group of people. I think if something bad happens again, we'll be able to act a little faster. And also having this group of people was helpful during Operation Metro Surge, people wanting to know what they could do, how they could help. And so even though it really wasn't didn't pertain to the building, it was a good thing to have in place. So that's sort of, I think, what we've done so far. But there is a lot more to do. It's a pain in the butt trying to get the landlord to come to the table. There is nothing that compels them to do so. This is not like a labor union where there are laws and there are rules and things that both sides have to do. So right now, all we really have is our protections against retaliation, and that's about it. They don't have to meet with us, and so far they really haven't, other than one non-productive introductory meeting last fall. So. Sure, although I would say I don't, other than my reading of the law, I'm not a lawyer, not really an expert.
I'd say, just my question is, if someone isn't paying rent, say for example, because they have been, they're home for 2 months, how protected are they in terms of non-retaliation? Because my understanding is that you essentially can still get a bank for non-payment.
So all I know is when I read Homeline's advice on withholding rent or not paying rent, they just said don't do it. It's not, being part of a union is not going to protect you if you're not paying your rent. That was what Homeline said.
Yeah, that's also the reason why I bring it up, because I think a lot of people would like to be able to call 311 but can't, because if they do, then they're going to be retaliated against for non-payment because they are behind on rent, for example, but they still, they live in buildings that are messed up.
Say probably better.
So one of the things, as you talked about the possibility of retaliation if you withhold your rent. The thing is, when you call 311, and if we hear that retaliation, we always tell residents you have to pay your rent. You should pay your rent. Now, there is a process that you have to go through if you're going to put your rent in escrow. You can go through the system, and that's through Hennepin County, file it, get the paperwork, the documentation, and say why you are withholding your rent. Now, that's a difference than just saying, I'm going to withhold the rent. Because what can happen is, let's say you don't pay your rent, and your property owner gives you that notice that you owe 2 months' rent. And sometimes people will say, well, I spent it on something else. That's not a really good idea. You need to put that money in escrow. Because the property owner will never, ever say, I filed a court action against you because you didn't pay your rent. That's all it's going to say. It's not going to say that there are all these other circumstances that are involved. And once you go before that hearing officer, the hearing officer is going to ask you one question. Do you have the money? And not only do you have the money, but do you have the court cost also? So those are things that you have to be very, very aware of and cognizant of those things. And so that's what we're talking about in terms of giving you the information. We always talk about, you should pay your rent. But if you don't, there's a process. And as long as you protect yourself in that process, it makes a difference. It may seem like that it's, oh my goodness, this is what I have to go through. But it's unfortunate that this is the system that we function in. And so that's what we talk about. As liaisons, we will tell you those things because we'll ask people to say, well, I got these problems and I have not paid my rent. Okay, that's fine that you have those problems. Have you contacted the inspector? Have you then put your rent in escrow? Do you have a court action? And then what that does is that puts the property owner on notice to say, I'm going to work this system that you know that you're a part of. And so we're going to be here to create something that will make it work for me, the resident. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess able to pay rent because they are, being terrorized, functionally have fewer rights in terms of being able to live in a safe and livable home because they can't call 311, because if they do, they will be evicted for non-payment.
They can be evicted for non-payment. But I mean, the bottom line is there are circumstances and there are options in terms of trying to make a pathway to find space where you can try to get some assistance also.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I have a bit of a follow-up question, because, filing escrow is a useful tool, and it's something I was lucky enough to be able to do myself in my unit, but not all of my neighbors have the ability to do that. I've door-knocked my building hundreds of times, and I have neighbors that have issues that I recommend they escrow the rent or file an ETRA. But what that means is court dates, what that means is filing fees, and I've had people tell me, I'd love to do that, but I have to work, I have my kids, and I just can't make a court date. I can't make 3 court dates, and I make just a little too much. I can't afford that $70 filing fee, So I don't know if you have any recommendations, about when people are falling through the cracks like that, people who are working essential jobs oftentimes just, at least in my building, just can't commit to something like escrow or an ETRA that might help them resolve their issue.
In that process, that's a level of frustration we all carry, because I don't have that and we don't have the answer for that, but we know it's unfortunate that this is a process and a system that is not beneficial for people that have income challenges, and that's unfortunate. And we will still try to reach out. We will try to reach out and try to make some connections, and that's what we do as liaisons.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, we interrupted you.
Oh,
Here.
I don't know. I mean,
Now-
there's more I can say, but I don't know what there is to say.
You come back.
I mean,
Or Kyle, would you like to chime in too?
I was going to say, if you want to chime in on.
We also have fire inspector join us, you're welcome to give your piece too. So, I'm sorry to remind you.
Yeah, I didn't come prepared to speak today. I didn't even know Stephen was going to be here, so finally we ran into each other. Oh yeah, sorry. Raise this up a little bit. There we go. How's that? Perfect. Yeah, I mean Stephen covered it pretty well. Yeah, yeah. I really just tried to capitalize on the frustration that was happening in the building because of the maintenance issues that we had. And Stephen really took the ball and ran with it after we did the escrow action. I think for me, the main thing going forward is just having this collective action to talk to council members and legislators and things like that to get more laws in our favor. Like, for example, having options for rent escrow that are easier for people to engage in. So, I don't know. That's about it, I guess. So, any other questions too?
To that, no. I mean, I was just thinking about, what are some challenges? What are some challenges that we have faced? They would include, of course. I mean, I've always wondered: are we doing this correctly? There's no good instructions on how to form this tenants union, and so I mean, I think bylaws are good. I think having our tenants board and board meetings are good. But are we missing something important? I don't really know who to ask. I don't really want to spend the money on an attorney to ask if we're doing anything right, and perhaps I'm a little afraid of what they're going to say and how expensive their solution will be. So that's one open issue. There's just actually staying in communication with everyone. We don't get a list of everybody in our building. We have to do this ourselves, and people move in, people move out. We don't know when that occurs. And so to some extent, yes, we could be knocking on doors all the time, but it would be nice if we could just give out newsletters. But that's expensive. I mean, our building, I think we ran the numbers, it's like $600, I think it was, if we wanted to do like just a 2-page newsletter that looked okay. So those are some issues that we have faced. But yeah, I think that's all I have.
Yeah, like I said. Okay.
Thank you. Did you have something else?
No, that was it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Fire inspector, do you have some few words? And then we will see if we get kind of a legal perspective from Marty.
Good afternoon, Nick Hayes, Fire Inspector Supervisor. Trust me, I'm new to the city, but I do see all the issues and everything else, the complaints that come in from 311. Even when we get on scene, we see a lot of times that we get on scene for one tenant and we have the next door neighbor that's like, oh, hey, what? Since you're here, by the way, we have this issue as well, and we see this and everything else. So as we said before, and as my subordinate said before, that 311 is the best way. When you all do call 311, you can put it in anonymous. So even though I understand about the reprisal and everything else, a lot of times I make sure that my subordinates and everything, when they go out there, that, hey, you meet with that tenant. If they feel like it's a reprisal or potential reprisal type of situation, when we talk to property management, we don't tell them like, hey, this is Kyle that's calling, or it's this person. We just say, hey, we received a call about this situation and we needed to get fixed. A lot of times, especially through this past winter, I received several phone calls about no heat or low heat. So I was on the phone. Trust me, he can tell you right now, there's been plenty of times that I'm on the phone at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning trying to talk to somebody to try to get somebody out there to fix the heat or work on whatever the problem is. So your calls and everything else, your concerns are being answered. We are working hard. We are trying to get out there and trying to get things going. I will say that we have dealt with some properties where the tenants did create a tenant union, or at least got together and started creating some things and everything else and brought it to our attention. And as we started to implement and go out there and do investigations and see what's going on, it helped in the process of getting some things moved. I will say that for you all to get together in your situation, get together, this is where that community, that neighborhood, that friendship thing comes together. You start knocking on doors. Hey, I'm having this issue. Are you still having that same type of issue? Oh, great. Let's get together. Let's write down all these issues that we're having. Let's call 311 up and we can tell them like our building is having these issues. That way we have record of it. That way we can go out there. We can sit there and have that laundry list of the issues that are going on versus just you have one issue, but all together they're the same issue. So that allows us to kind of have more teeth in it and being able to say, hey, you have several things that are going on in your building that you all need to fix. So once again, it's not just I live in my apartment, it's just me and I'm having these own issues. A lot of times if you talk to your neighbors, knock on the doors, you'll start to see that sometimes they're having the same issues that you all are having, and you all can come together and be more of a force to kind of help get things fixed. And trust me, I'm there with you. I'm sitting there making the calls. I'm sitting there, and there's a lot of times and things where I'm frustrated as well about what's going on and what's happening, and we're making sure that we do everything that we can in our power to get things fixed. All right? Any questions?
Hi, Dick Sando, the Aldershot Tenant Association. We've been working a lot with Brett Fears.
Yes.
Yeah, you're familiar with our buildings.
Yes.
And Daniel Kruger, how wonderful of a guy he is. So my question is pertaining to those complaints. My apartment, currently they're a month past due on one of those complaints. So I'm going to be filing escrow on Monday, along with several members for some other things like the utility bills not being accurately, wasn't the calculations or whatever. They tell us how we're billing. So we got several of us doing that. But my question is, if they continue to do nothing, what is the penalty for a landlord?
So every situation, unfortunately, this is where we gotta, as I tell people, we gotta kind of lawyer the answer because every situation is different, and there's not a blanket, okay, this happens, so this is that. Every little situation is different. So depending, let's say, for instance, on no heat, low heat, they have 72 hours to sit there and try to get something done to rectify that situation. Now, depending on what the cause of the problem is, for instance, let's say they need a new boiler. That's not anything that you can just replace and buy and purchase and get put in and fixed and everything else in that 72-hour time frame. But we're like, hey, what are you doing to at least mitigate that situation during that time? Hey, have you already ordered have you ordered it? Have you done it? Are you at least giving them space heaters? It's things that are going on. But if, let's say, it's your unit and they just haven't done anything within that 72-hour time frame, we are giving them citations and everything else.
Yeah.
So, and that is progressive into the process.
Are those citations on the owner of the LLC, or are they on the LLC that owns the property?
So the citation is always given to the actual owner of the building. So
would that be like, because we have Aldrich Properties LLC, that's the owner, but since Daniel Kruger owns that, is it just limit all liability? He doesn't even get citations?
Your situation, and I know it, trust me, I know it very well. Yours is very strategic.
Your whole department does,
Yeah, your situation and everything else, that's why I said it's different, it's very strategic in the way that we have to move with that.
Of course, yeah.
So we can talk one-on-one because yours is very
Specific.
yes. Yes.
My name is Karan Boyd.
Hi.
I have a question. I noticed the flyer outside posted when I was walking. I actually live on Oak Grove Street.
Okay.
And I've been in the neighborhood for 4 years, going on April 1st. I have a question about landlords / property owners who use retaliatory tactics to punish tenants for disagreements. Essentially, that is what just happened to me, and it literally just happened to me a couple days ago. I have had no infractions while living there. Rent has been current, and there were, some position changes as far as, managerial goes, and a lot of those things were not communicated to me. When Grove 94 purchased that property in September of 2024, I believe, it was in the middle of my lease. And so, with the new property owners came, new software, new computers, new portal, new everything. And so they did not do a good job on disseminating, adequate information in regards to what are the channels that we're going to go through now to, pay our utilities or access our portal so that, when the lease is time to be renewed or,
Right.
You have that information. And there really wasn't even much communication as far as letting us know that the transition happened. I just am aware, and essentially, there were just a lot of negligent errors that they made, and because I gave constructive criticism, and I feel this as an African American, there will be certain races that move into our communities. A lot of them are immigrants, and they will set up, businesses in, lower, in poor neighborhoods and inflate, price gouge completely,
Right.
and then treat the very people of that community like shit or look down on them. And I just feel like with this situation, with this property owner, I do intend to seek out all possible options, because I feel if I were another race and my ceiling collapsed on my head while I was taking a shower and I went to go make a maintenance request about it and nothing is done until 6 hours later, there is no sense of urgency, there is no communication, I do at that point have a right to be frustrated. And oftentimes I feel like as a Black man, I dance around the fragility of other races,
Right.
temperaments, because you can be perceived as threatening or aggressive. And I'm articulate and I know how to convey any messages without threatening anyone, using expletives. I know how to do that. In
Right.
this situation, a constructive criticism was given. and he responded with, okay, we're no longer going to renew your lease a month before my lease ends. So I didn't even get the proper window of time allotted to me so that I can have enough, adequate enough time to make that move. And I guess the question is what do you do when landlords slash property owners become like all too powerful and they don't play fair?
Yeah. So unfortunately, that would be more of a Daryl question. I can only,
Who's Daryl?
Daryl's right here.
Hi,
So he's
Daryl.
our housing liaison.
Hi, Daryl.
So he deals more with that aspect of it. What I can do, like I said, is,
Excuse me? Yes.
yeah, so that is more of
Okay.
him. Only thing we can do on the fire side and inspector side, when you give us a call, let us know what's going on. We can come in there and do the inspections, kind of see what's going on in that aspect of the roof, ceiling, walls, the outside of the property and things of that nature, write those orders and try to enforce them to meet that standard. And we do have some that are like, hey, thank you for calling us. We'll fix it right away. And then unfortunately, we do have some that try to do the dog and pony and the dance show and everything else. And we make sure that we identify and kind of see that stuff and kind of like, okay, how can we make sure that we get them in line to what they're supposed to be doing and let them know and understand the dog and pony show is not going to work on us. So unfortunately, I'm a veteran, so I know and I see the dog and pony show and I know like, okay. But at the end of the day, we're all still human, so we're trying to make sure that your properties are good. So, but yes. That's city council. That's not me. Sorry.
Let me tell you that renters' rights are very important to the Ward 7 office. And we have already, since we moved into this position, I moved into this position, have heard of 2 buildings in particular that are new on the radar that we're working with. In fact, I'm meeting some of the management even on Monday of some of these places to deal directly with them. I am keeping tabs with some of the city staff that have some of the oversight about license renewals on some of these buildings that are coming forward in the next few months. That's a real pressure point that we can determine and have an inside look through an inspection on what's going on in these buildings, and those licenses need to be renewed through the city council process. So please know that we have been dealing with ice in our streets first and foremost these first 3 months. But we do want to become, this is why this was my second priority for community conversations, to be directly engaged with those of you that are on the ground experiencing some of these effects and trying to connect you to resources and people and aid that we can figure out the best way to keep people in, supported through this process. One person that we wanted to invite today that could not come when we changed the date was Homeline Representative or Legal Aid. My senior aide in my office is Marty Carlson, and he did a little bit of research, and I trust his research because he is a former lawyer, but he has about 5 minutes that if those of you are not familiar with Homeline or how to access some of that information, Marty's just going to give us a couple minutes overview, and then I do really want to save time if there's any other additional questions and save time for you to be, oh goodness. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, why don't you give your little spiel and, okay, great.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. As the council member said, I'm Marty Carlson. I'm her senior aide. I've lived in Ward 7 for pretty much my entire adult life. I grew up in Michigan, moved out here for 4 years of college, and I'm still here. Specifically, I lived in the Loring Park area most of my 20s. I lived at 330 Oak Grove Street. I had a tiny little studio apartment. And so I very much remember what it's like being a renter in the area. The whole area is still near and dear to my heart. My I'm not practicing as a lawyer right now because I'm working for the city. My license is still active. I don't consider myself an expert on landlord-tenant stuff, but I have dealt with housing issues. I did a stint at the Attorney General's office where during the foreclosure crisis and the run-up to the Great Recession, home equity stripping, things like that, and I got designated as the landlord-tenant person in the Consumer Enforcement Division, the attorney. So if we got citizen calls that our non-attorney staff couldn't handle, they all got sent to me. So that made me at least read the statute and figure it out. So I've got a few thoughts for you that I hope will be helpful. They're intended to be practical suggestions, not legal advice. Really, there are two areas that I think most renters are concerned about when they're thinking about legal issues. One is, I'm in trouble with my rent and I'm worried I'm about to get evicted. That's one issue. The other is, I've got a bad landlord, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Different approaches to both problems. When it comes to evictions, the challenge, of course, is that you desperately need a lawyer, but if you could afford to pay a lawyer, you wouldn't be facing eviction. So it's a miserable catch-22. It's no fun for anybody. And there's not one clean answer to it except to say that there are a lot of resources that are available to you, and just figuring out how to navigate those is really kind of the trick. And I think I completely agree with everything that Daryl said. But basically, it was interesting from a council standpoint. We've been talking about rental assistance and legislation related to rental assistance. We've been doing a lot of research and talking to people. And I was actually on the phone last week with the guy who runs Rent Help Hennepin, who's really smart about this stuff. And we were having a fairly wide-ranging conversation, but I told him my impression is that of all the eviction actions filed, less than half of them actually result in a completed eviction. And he said, no, actually at this point the number is more like 25%. So if you think about it, all these people facing eviction who can't afford a lawyer, 3 out of every 4 of them find an off-ramp somewhere. And that's because there is a really good network of support that's available to you, and it's a network that didn't really exist, or at least not in its current form, when I was a renter back in the 90s. So you should all feel at least somewhat good about that. It's your tax dollars at work, and you've got some really committed people who are here to help. So the number one thing I would recommend doing, and this is what I've done, is just go onto Google or whatever your preferred search engine is, and just type in Minneapolis tenant resources. It will bring the first 3 or 4 hits it brings up are going to be the places that you want to start. There are 2 city pages that just list out all of the resources that are available. Some of the big 3 sort of charitable lawyer outreach organizations, Legal Aid, there's Homeline, there's the Volunteer Lawyers Network, there's contact for that. There is direction to Rent Help Hennepin, which is where you're going to want to go for direct governmental assistance with your rent. There's direction to the housing liaisons. There's a whole network of organizations that are there to help you. The other thing that I will say is, and this is something that has changed in the last 5 to 15 years, I would say, is even if you are stuck representing yourselves, there are resources available to you that simply didn't exist. The Minnesota Revisor of Statutes website, you can get accurate copies of the statutes. It's 504B is the main landlord-tenant one, and you can just click on all the provisions and read it for yourself. It helps to have a law degree, but it's not rocket science. Yeah, sure. 504B is the statute, and Minnesota Revisor of Statutes. It's a wonderful website. Also, the Minnesota Judicial Branch has copies of all of its appellate and even district court orders available online. The appellate ones are text searchable. It's really nice. Even some of the briefs now are available on the district court website, which is a wonderful free resource. I will caution people about using AI. I think it's going to become a wonderful resource at some point for people who are in distress, but right now my experience has been it makes stuff up that isn't true. So it sounds good, it looks really good, but it's not actually true. So proceed with great, great caution. I think at some point that's going to mature. It's going to interface with the revisor's website. It's going to pull briefs off of the court website. It's going to be a wonderful resource, but we're not quite there yet. When it comes to shifting course onto bad landlords, different set of options there. Again, you're not in a great position a lot of the time. I just got a call in the office earlier this week with a fellow who's just really frustrated. He's a healthcare worker who works odd hours, gets home, needs to throw his scrubs in the washing machine, get them going so that, can be ready for work the next day, and the washer and the dryer just break. You have to use an app to make them work. The app isn't working. It's taking his money. He's out $20. Really frustrating. That's when you call 311, call the housing liaison. No lawyer, unfortunately, is going to take your case for $20. But where you may have some luck, particularly when it comes to building-wide problems, and this is, again, go to the Reviser of Statutes website and start looking through the potential claims. It lists out your rights, but what you want to look for specifically are what we call fee-shifting provisions. That is, if you win your claim, it says in the statute that the landlord has to pay your attorney fees. What's awesome about that is you can have a $50 claim, and as long as you win on your claim, if your attorney racks up $50,000 in lawyer fees, you're going to get a judgment for $50,050. So that will excite a lawyer's interest. So I just, before I came over here, looked at a few statutes that actually have fee shifting within 504B. Unlawful termination of utilities, fee shifting. Residential right to privacy, violation of that statute. It's relatively new. That's got fee shifting. They come in, they don't give you notice, they got to pay your fees. Tenant right to organize, if they unlawfully squelch your right to organize as a tenants union, there's fee shifting there. There's also a statute that says, if you read your lease, it'll often say, well, landlord, if, tenant, if you don't do this, we get to sue you as a landlord, and if we win, we get our attorney fees. But it doesn't say the same thing for you as the tenant. Well, the statute actually does that. So any provision in a lease in Minnesota that says landlord gets to recover attorney fees, you just read into it that you as tenants get to do that as well. So that's really a valuable tool if you want to get private representation. The other thing, and this is really, I think, for larger buildings, and LPM, I'm looking at you, is just this pooling of resources, where people didn't used to do that. I think it was just a cultural thing. But, if you've got a building with 300 units and you can pony up a little bit of money, it can add up to a lot. Back in the day, it was like, gee, that sounds like a big problem for you. But people do a better job of organizing now, and that's all to the good. So I hope that's helpful. We've got some questions. I'll get out of the way. Oh, sorry, one quick question.
I have a market-specific question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that reading legalese is not easy, but it's not rocket science.
Correct.
I have tried to read legalese, and it is bad. I am a native English speaker, and I got a degree in computer science.
Yeah.
By all means, I'm used to reading hard-to-read documents.
Yeah.
It is difficult.
Yeah, it's.
Are there plain language alternatives
No.
to people who are not used to reading it?
No, there are not.
Okay.
And again, I would not trust AI.
Sure.
But, just take a run at it, look at the individual provisions, and do the best you can. And if you have questions, like Homeline has they've got a phone bank with lawyers.
Sure.
They'll talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I did, when I was at the AG's office, we worked in tandem. So we'd have a distressed homeowner, and then we'd coordinate with Homeline to try and keep them in their house.
Can you talk a little bit more? Because they recommend extending the evictions deadline. So why is the decision to not extend that or to pause evictions if Homeline was recommending that?
Let's just say there was a rich difference of opinion on that point, as I'm sure you're aware.
Can you unpack it a little bit? The difference?
Yeah, so basically, is that okay, Elizabeth?
And I'm sure I can take this.
Okay, if you want.
It was my vote,
Sure.
right? First of all, I would like to say our office is available for specific questions. That's how I operated on the park board. That's how we operate for Ward 7. It's because I want to help. I see that one of the major responsibilities of this role is to be in touch with the constituents and try to meet on-the-ground needs. Now, do we have money in the Ward 7 office for rent? No, we do not. But we have a lot of resources, which we've tried to bring today, to help with that process. And so I am excited about beginning this conversation. I feel today is the first step in a lot of ways of bringing these resources together. You heard in the news, and Marty alluded to, that there were 2 recent initiatives, and I'm just going to take 2 minutes, and then we're going to break so that we don't lose Daryl, and we don't lose Mike, so that you guys can connect to them. And I'm going to say 2 minutes, and then if you want to talk some more over here, I'm happy to continue to dialogue about this. We are really excited, and I have supported rental assistance. We have heard that that is one of the biggest ways that we as a city council can help, providing rental assistance. And just this last Thursday, we passed almost $3 million that will be matched with another $3 million by a philanthropic foundation. So we're really excited to be able to push that money out in addition to the $1 million that we already allocated to Hennepin County earlier. The vote that I took around Pause Evictions Save Lives was against extending that eviction moratorium to 60 days and keeping it at 30 days. And the reason for my vote on that is that I listened to the nonprofit housing providers that came forward to speak to how they felt it would impact the population that they were helping in the moment. And so that it would create more distress, more debt burden on them, because right at the moment of 30 days, these nonprofits begin to reach out and create payment plans and create help in filing for rental assistance with the county for the various people that are facing that. And so they felt like this delay would create more debt burden for people in that situation. These nonprofits are reaching out to some of the people that are just one step away from being unhoused. And so I really respect their opinion and have really wanted to lean into their opinion as far as more mutual aid needed as well. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for coming. I will take additional questions. I'm going to stand over here, and why don't you guys can kind of just be where you are. Please connect with Daryl and Michael and everyone that's here. Marty, if you have legal questions, we would like to talk some more. Thank you.
Add to what you said, the Minnesota Attorney General actually does on their website have a legalese breakdown.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's a PDF. It's ag.state.mn.us. I also ran into troubles reading the law as it was written, and this was a breakdown of that. So I'm not sure if you guys knew about that resource, but I wanted everyone to be able to have that if they wanted to look at it.
And Elizabeth, before you step away, are you willing to name the nonprofit people so we can also reach out to them if we have questions about rental assistance that you spoke with about the vote?
The nonprofits that are distributing the money?
Yeah, the ones that you spoke with for like expert opinion on your vote, just so like we can also go.
Oh, the nonprofits. Yes, there were 13 that, and we can get you that list. I don't have them. Okay, great, right off the top of the list. But they were the major providers that we have partnered often with our Affordable Housing Fund. Yeah.
Would I be able to contact your office to get that letter that they sent the city council?
And actually, it's already available online.
It
It's
is.
part of the public comment materials.
Okay, cool,
Yeah,
great,
so, but
fantastic.
you can contact us.
Awesome, I will check
Great.
that out.
Okay, well, thank you all for coming. We have so many extra cookies, so please, if you're not hungry for cookies now, take them. Thank you.